So you want to be a pro musician. What are you, crazy? Go to law school, go to med school, become a veterinarian, become a politician for God's sakes, anything. All right, I know that didn't work because you're crazy like me and you want to be a pro musician. So let me help you on the path. So diversification is so important. Diversity will help you get through times of adversity. And I'm talking about both musical diversification here, like being able to play different instruments, maybe in a few different styles. Also definitely being able to sing, developing a voice at least as a background singer. But also career diversity, being able to do a few different things besides maybe the number one thing that you'd love to be doing. A lot of us would love to, for instance, I'm sure, be a guitar player in a famous band, writing songs, touring the world, that sort of thing. But obviously it takes a while to get there. And you're gonna have to figure out a few things you can do on the path just to pay the bills. Okay, a little disclaimer about the thing I just said. This should go without saying, but obviously I was just talking about being a famous guitar player in a band, staying on the path and doing some other stuff until that happens. I know there's gonna be somebody out there that comments like, why are you putting false hope in everybody's heads, dude? Like, that's not even possible. Like, not everybody can be in a famous band. It doesn't happen for everybody. That's not reality. Okay, no shit. That should go without saying, right? It's totally obvious. But the point is that you have to believe it. Otherwise, all bets are off. I mean, that's a square one. You have to believe that you can get there at some point. You have to have that belief in order to carry you through and get you through the adverse times. So that's really important. And if you're a positive person and you believe that it's possible, I believe you're going to end up somewhere cool. I believed it was possible back when I first moved to LA and I was living in a one-bedroom apartment with 3 guys. When you're young and the world's your oyster and the sky's the limit, you have to believe that you can do it. That's square one, okay? Just believing that you can do it, staying positive, staying on the path, that's a prerequisite to get there. You have to believe in yourself. And if you're the type of person that stays positive, believes in yourself, and works really hard, yes, it's still possible you might not end up getting there. Probable actually, but you can still get somewhere cool. I am case in point, case study example of that. I've got a pretty cool career playing guitar. I ended up being a sideman with some of the biggest singers of all time. It wasn't quite my goal to be like a successful touring sideman. I wanted to be in an original band, writing songs, making records, but I did end up somewhere pretty cool. And I believe that the main component in that was that I stayed positive, worked really hard, and just stayed in the game. And diversity, playing guitar and bass, being able to sing, teaching, working in music shops, learning a lot about guitars and effects. That has all helped me on the path to have a 20+ year career now as a professional musician. So when I think about when I started, I mean, there wasn't as many options as there is now as far as being able to diversify from a career perspective. While I was in original bands, writing songs and trying to get record deals and all that kind of stuff, I also always played in cover bands, which is great because it keeps you out there, it keeps you learning material all the time and gets you out playing in kind of low stress situations where you can really learn to develop and take chances as a player. So I would do everything from like 2 guys sitting on acoustic guitars, in a pub, singing Beatles songs, through to full-on rock and roll cover bands with 4 or 5 players. I played bass as well as guitar. And I would always try and sing at least a couple songs a night as a lead singer. I had a regular steady Tuesday night gig in Pasadena, California. I would do every Tuesday, and that was a gig that I would mainly play bass on. So once again, I did lots of acoustic duo cover gigs. That was great for my singing as well as learning how to hold the interest of a crowd, just playing acoustic guitar. And I did lots of rock band stuff too, rock cover band stuff, dealing with playing through small amps, big amps, all kinds of PA systems. Many times it was just like 2 speakers up on sticks in a bar or something like that, no monitors or anything. So it's just really, really great gigging 101 experience playing in cover bands, I think. Now, I also worked in music stores quite a bit. That is something I hesitate to recommend, but it could work for you. Just in my particular experience, the negatives were that many times after working 6 or 8 hour shift in a music store, I would come home and not want to pick up a guitar. I would want to tune out from guitar and just watch a movie or read a book or something. I didn't want to hear any more music. So I hesitate to recommend it because of that, but you might not feel the same way. Some of the positive things that I got out of it were probably learning a lot about gear and interacting with people, learning how to talk about gear and demonstrate it. And I guess that has served me well in the gear demo thing, making the types of videos I make about pedals and things like that. So there is some positives, definitely, that I got out of working in music stores, and I made some great friends as well. So let's talk a little bit about teaching and lessons. I taught a lot when I was younger. Actually, when I was 17 years old, I actually had about 35 students a week, I think. I was working 4 or 5 days a week teaching. It was a great experience and a great job for me at that point. I think I kind of did burn myself out on teaching a little bit, though, because I had a pretty heavy workload. I used to work in music shops that had lesson programs. I'd work for them. I also taught private lessons. I would put up ads in coffee shops where I'd write, guitar teacher looking for students. And I'd put up an ad on the bulletin board in a coffee shop with all the little pieces of paper on the bottom you could rip off with my phone number. And I would drive to people's houses and teach private lessons that way sometimes. Back then there was no internet. There was no other way to do it. It was just one-on-one lessons. Either that or you'd create a video lesson through a company like REH or Starlix or something and sell VHS tapes. But nowadays, it's so easy. You can do Skype lessons. Basically, you can reach people anywhere in the world if they want to hire you to do a guitar lesson, and you can do a one-on-one guitar lesson that way and get paid via PayPal or Venmo. And then if we look at somebody like Tim Pierce, he's got this great online masterclass that he does, a studio guitar masterclass. He developed it over a couple of years, constantly filming video lessons and coming up with great content. He's very forward thinking in that way. I really believe that video lessons are a fantastic thing for us musicians. If you can just put in the work and create a lesson, you only have to teach it once and then edit it into something cohesive. And whether you release it yourself or you do it through a company like Jamtrack Central or TrueFire, it ends up being mailbox money. You're making money in your sleep, and that's always a good thing. So anyways, there's just a number of different things that you can do now that just weren't even an option back when I started teaching. Everything from one-on-one lessons to Skype lessons so you can have a worldwide reach to creating video courses or master classes. Of course, there's also clinics. I love doing clinics. If there's any way that you've got an opportunity to get into that, it's a fantastic way to travel around. It's not touring, but it's sort of like touring. And you can teach to smaller or larger groups of people at one time. If you've got ideas for creating video courses, you can always approach companies like Jamtrack Central, TrueFire, and see if they'd be interested in helping you release your content. Okay, let's talk about YouTube and Instagram for just a second here. I don't want to really focus on those things in this video. That'll be for a later video because it's such a huge, broad subject. But, developing an online presence through YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all these types of social media is definitely beneficial. Almost a prerequisite, I would say, to having a music career these days. Building your brand or whatever you want to call it. God, I hate even saying that. But it's been obviously a really, really terrific thing for me. So I'll focus on it, like I said, in another video later because it's such a broad topic. But what I just want to say in this video is if you do have a YouTube channel, an Instagram account, and you want to develop them, get more followers and that kind of thing and have some success with it, the number one piece of advice I can give you is come up with something original. Don't do the same thing that I'm doing or anybody else that you see on YouTube or Instagram. You need to come up with an original concept. When I think about folks like Rick Beato and his awesome channel, which is super entertaining and also really educational, and then somebody like Leo from Frog Leap Studios and his awesome channel, where he's basically an incredibly successful independent music artist that makes great videos that are really funny and entertaining, and also sometimes does some guitar gear related content. These guys have got two channels that are completely different and yet related. As a guitar player, drummer, bass player, vocalist, you can easily watch both of those channels and be completely entertained and also learn a lot. So try and come up with something different, like not Leo's thing, not Rick's thing, not my thing. Come up with something that you haven't seen anybody else do, something original, and that's the channels that tend to take hold with people and you'll see them growing. You just need to make really quality content and you need to be consistent about it. Okay, one more piece of advice when it comes to YouTube, Instagram, and all that. I would say you got to give back. That's the videos that people tend to respond to the most. If you're teaching something, if you're giving people some content they can use, then you tend to avoid the pitfalls of the folks that always seem like they're just self-promoting. So whether you're teaching like Rick Beato does so successfully, or whether you're just really, really entertaining like Leo does with the Frog Leap Studios channel, both those guys are giving something out there to the music community. People are feeling like they're getting something really great watching their videos, and it comes back to them in spades. You get tons of subscribers and lots of views when you give people something that they can't get anywhere else. So let's talk about sessions for just a second here. So it's really tough to be a session musician these days. I know that. The golden years of, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, it's kind of gone by the wayside. But there is opportunities out there still. I get approached often by people from overseas and all over the world, really, that want me to play guitar on tracks or produce things for them, but do it remotely, from my studio. They'll send me a WAV file, and then I'll just cut a solo on top of their tune and send it back to them. So there's a lot of that kind of work out there. And if you can cultivate that kind of stuff, it's terrific. Obviously you need to have a good home recording setup and a type of studio where you can get some good professional results. But if you can build up your brand, on Instagram and YouTube and stuff, people see you play and they like the way you play. I guarantee, if you're somewhat accessible with an email where people can get in touch with you, you're going to get requests to play on people's tracks. So that kind of remote session stuff, that can be a great way to diversify. And this is stuff you can do if you live in Nebraska. You don't have to live in a session town like LA or Nashville. So let's talk about musical diversification a little bit. When I think about friends of mine like Andy Wood, the guy plays like ripping country guitar, but he also loves rock and, can full on shred with the best of them. But he'll pick up a D28 and absolutely blaze on like acoustic bluegrass. And he's also a really great mandolin player. So it's all these skills that have helped him get gigs like with Rascal Flatts, for instance, when they need a multi-instrumentalist that can cover guitar, mandolin. They're a modern country band, but, there's a lot of rock and roll going on and kind of shreddy soloing and stuff like that in that type of music too. So Andy's the perfect fit, and his diversity on a bunch of different instruments really helps him get gigs like that. I think about my friend Frank Symes. He has played guitar with Roger Daltrey and also been his musical director for a long time now. So when Roger's not touring with The Who, he's got a solo band. Frank is the guitar player in that band and also the MD. Which means that Frank really had to get inside things like Tommy and Quadrophenia and know all the parts, vocal parts and all the different instrumental parts like inside and out. Well, that really set him up to get his current gig as musical director of The Who. Pete Townshend's not a guy that likes to rehearse a lot, I don't think. So when somebody like Frank is in the fold, Frank can handle, doling out vocal parts to different people and things like that in the band and deal with that kind of nitty gritty. And Pete can just come in and kind of do his thing and rock. So Frank's diversity, his ability to play some keyboards, play amazing guitar, but also he's a great singer. He can wear a bunch of different hats, and that really has served him well, both as musical director and guitarist for Roger Daltrey, but also as musical director for The Who. Lyle Workman's a great example of a guy that's done so much different stuff. He's played guitar with Frank Black, but he also has done music for movies like The 40-Year-Old Virgin, as well as a ton of other movies. He's not just a guitar player, he's got a really varied skill set. Obviously, that's a great thing, to be able to score movies and go out on tour with Frank Black. Not getting stuck too hard in any one decade is a great thing, too. Amir from the band Orgy comes to mind. He was also in the band Rough Cut. Going back to probably 1983 or 84, he was in an 80s band. And then he was able to successfully transition into a 90s band that sounded much more like, Marilyn Manson meets Nine Inch Nails or something. Staying true to yourself, but having diverse taste and not getting too stuck in your ways, that can't hurt. Look at Josh Freese. God, what a great example. He plays with Sting and he also plays with the Vandals. And he sounds totally authentic and awesome doing both gigs. It's because he's just so damn musical and his scope is just so wide. But that keeps him working constantly, along with his incredible, ridiculous skill, of course, too. Where I would draw the limit at musical diversification is if you just truly don't dig a style, If you don't understand it, if it's just not in your heart, then I think you should probably stick in your wheelhouse. I always think that's a better thing. I think it's hard for a player to sound authentic playing a style of music that they don't really like or don't really understand. But if you enjoy lots of different kind of music and you can kind of widen your scope as far as listening goes and entertain the idea of learning some different styles and learning some different instruments, it's just going to bode well for your employment. So a couple things that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. One of them is being an artist and putting out your own music. I've got 2 albums out. I put out Guitar Nerd in 2011 and Pete Thorn 2 put out in 2018 last year. Way too much time in between those two. If I could put out an album every year, I would. It's such a great thing, honestly. And as an independent artist, if you just ask your fans out there to support you, they tend to do it in spades. If I get emails all the time from people asking me, how would you prefer that I get your music? Would you like me to get it from iTunes or CD Baby where I sell CDs? That blows my mind that people are that kind and, they want to support, they want to help you. They know it's difficult out there as an independent artist these days. And so it's been a fantastic experience for me releasing my own music and becoming a music artist in my own right. So I certainly recommend that. Release singles if you don't want to do a whole album, but you can put out music so easy these days through companies like DistroKid and through CD Baby. It's really easy to release songs now on iTunes and Spotify and Google Play and all that stuff. And it's a great way to diversify and once again, build your own thing. And the other thing that I've done to really diversify in the last 7 or 8 years or so, I guess, is I'm a writer. I write a column for Premier Guitar every month called Tone Tips from the Road. I've done that since 2012. So 12 columns a year. Prior to that, I had an online-only column that I did for a little while with them as well. And it's been a great thing for me. I really enjoy writing. I love thinking and talking about guitar and music and all this stuff. And it's just been a terrific way for me to make a little bit of extra money every month and do something else besides play, but that's still music-oriented. So in summary, career diversification, doing everything from teaching to playing cover gigs to touring to playing in original bands, doing sessions, doing Skype lessons online, creating courses and selling them through Jamtrack Central or TrueFire, or maybe on your own website. Steve Vai just wrote his own theory book. These are all great ways to diversify. And musical diversification, if you can play some different instruments in some different styles, definitely take up singing if you don't already. And that's just going to keep you working doing what you love. Thanks for watching. Please hit subscribe if you haven't. Share this video with your friends and hit the thumbs up if you don't mind. And I will see you real soon. I'm Pete Thorn. Take care.